Almost 3 weeks since their last Sky Bet League One fixture, Rovers resumed their league campaign against Sunderland at the Keepmoat Stadium. After 2 cup games with Andy Butler in temporary charge, Darren Moore is back from his self-isolation and ready to lead Rovers in search of 3 points against the Black Cats. It's Doncaster Rovers against Sunderland from 3 p.m. Good afternoon and welcome back to the Keepmoat Stadium, and thank you for joining us for our pre-match build-up to the game against Sunderland in Sky Bet League One. I'm delighted to say joining me Liam Hoden from the Free Press and his colleague Paul Goodwin. A big game this afternoon, gents, one against Sunderland and one that Rovers have to get up for.
Definitely. We've seen that they've had no problem with that against the top teams in the league so far this season, so definitely a big game. You want to kick back off on this next run of games in good style, and what better way than getting a result against one of the top teams.
And it's the type of game, Paul, that Rovers seem to do well in. We've seen results against Ipswich, Charlton, Lincoln and such like. The game today is set up to be a really entertaining one.
Yeah, it's a strange one, that record, isn't it? I think the players themselves are still trying to get their head around that, but yeah, I'd give Donny a good chance today. We'll come on to it. I'm a Sunderland lad, you can't hide the accent, so an interesting game for myself this afternoon. But yeah, looking forward to it. From a Doncaster perspective, I'd be quite confident, but we'll come on to that, I'm sure.
It's been a bit of a strange few weeks, Liam, starting with Darren Moore's period of isolation, Andy Butler taking charge, and more recently, of course, Joseph Bursick being recalled by Stoke. How do you assess the goings-on since Rovers' last home league game against Lincoln?
It's been different, certainly been different. I think you could trust that Andy Butler were always going to be a calm head and a reliable head to kind of guide the team in Darren Moore's absence, with Darren's contribution as well from home. So there were no problems with that. Darren just pointing out that he'd perhaps not got to work with the players as much as he'd liked to have done given the break. But then obviously the turmoil of the goalkeeping situation late on ahead of this game. But Rovers seem to have acted quickly. They've got somebody with plenty of experience who's played games this season. So hopefully it shouldn't be too much of a transition.
Ordinarily, you perhaps wouldn't have a goalkeeper coming in who's only trained once with the squad, but part of the emergency loan rules state that he has to play, so it's a really strange set of circumstances. Yeah,
difficult one. You got to do what you got to do. But I think what's good for Rovers is the back line has got such a great understanding with each other that we've seen there were very sort of few teething problems when Joseph Bursick came in. That I think they should be fine with that one, and the back four will definitely take care of Joe Lumley.
In terms of the Lumley coming in, how will Sunderland see that, do you think, Gutters?
I think Sunderland can only see it as an advantage. I think it's going to be one of those whether you build that relationship in such a short space of time. Communication is such a massive thing for a goalkeeper. But like you said, Lumley's got that experience. You'd expect him to come in and do a job. I'm a little bit disappointed that Louis Jones won't get his chance this afternoon. And it's quite an interesting one. It was a delicate situation, I think, in terms of the rules and regulations as to whether Louis will actually be on the bench this afternoon. So that's one to look out for. I know fans are a little bit split, aren't they, on Bursick in terms of his distribution and little bits and bobs. So interesting to see how Lumley comes in and does.
Seems so long ago since Rovers' last league game now, but to refresh your memory a little bit, here are the best bits from that 2-2 draw at AFC Wimbledon. A last-minute leveller then from James Coppinger. We were both at that game. Rovers battled to a point in the end, but for the overall performance, probably deserved much more than that.
Really should have won that game. Dominated play. Were quite patient in possession, which were a good thing to see because they've struggled against teams that have kind of tried to shut them out, and they did more than enough to win that game, but just couldn't find the back of the net. And the old reliable James Coppinger popping up in the last minute with a deflected effort. You know, it got a point from. It would have been a travesty if they'd have not come away with anything from that game.
Goodness, how did you see it? Obviously, going behind, getting back into it once, and then having all the possession in the second half, and being 2-1 down last few minutes. Rovers fans watching from home must have been thinking same old story against a team who, on paper, you'd fancy Rovers to beat.
Yeah, a frustrating one in one sense, but on the other sense, you're happy to come out there with a point and just keep things ticking over. I think the magical formula for where Doncaster want to be this season is to win your home games and pick up as many points as you can on the road. So if we're going by that, then it's not a bad result.
It was, of course, Wimbledon's first game back at Plough Lane, so there was the added pressure of that, but Rovers seemed to deal with that fairly well, didn't they, and seemed like the home team for much of it.
Yeah, I think they played as though there weren't really an occasion to it, and if there were any side that perhaps a little bit overawed by it was Wimbledon. But Rovers, as you say, in controlling possession. We know how much they love to get on the ball and play it about, and they did really well at that on the night. That
was one of I think 2 games in a row where Matt Smith was used in a more advanced role. What have you made to his adaptation of playing there? We've seen him play for Wales and his first few games at Rovers in a more deeper role. But once he's gone in a more attacking sense, he seems to have that in his locker as well.
Definitely. It was interesting speaking to him and asking which position he prefers, and he says he doesn't want to pigeonhole himself into a position like that. And I think we've seen with him playing higher up the pitch just exactly why, because he can do both really, really well. Fantastic close control. He battles as well, and it's great to have somebody high up the pitch like that who can win the ball back and get Rovers playing right high up the pitch.
Someone else who come in on loan and done well good is Josh Sims. How do you think Sunderland will go about dealing with his threat on the flanks today?
That's a real key area today, the flanks. Sunderland to play wing backs, likely to play 3 at the back and wing backs, so it's a really interesting one in terms of who's going to push who back. I've spent the week talking up Donny basically amongst all my Sunderland mates and some of their fan sites, and Josh Sims was the standout player. He was the one really that I was waxing lyrical about. So they'll know all about him, Sunderland, but I think whether they can cope with his pace and his trickery, we'll find out come 3 o'clock.
It's been a frustrating couple of weeks for Darren Moore, as we mentioned earlier on, due to his self-isolation, but he's keen to hit the ground running since his return to Cantley.
You know me, Liam, in terms of, we just work and look to get better. So to miss those sort of 10, 12 days of good work time, I did have a little bit of a sore head with it in terms of that. But, you come to terms, because at the end of the day, like I said, the number one priority is the health and safety of obviously yourself and all those that you're connected with as well, Now it's just getting all the international players back in the building and then working from here now. And obviously we got the game on Saturday, then we got the game on Tuesday. So there's minimal work in between in terms of grass and pitch time. So you're going to try and combine a bit of the grass and a bit of the classroom stuff. But again, because of the COVID restrictions, there's minimal time you can spend indoors in the classroom. So it's pinching and clawing back whatever possible that you can do. It's getting the clear messages to them in the minimal time that you've got in terms of just getting back and sort of just carrying them from where you left off, really, It was good. It was different, actually. I mean, it's incredible. Like, think like, here I am as Doncaster Rovers manager, and I'm preparing to watch my team on TV. I mean, it don't quite make sense. And then, you pick the phone up and you're speaking to your analysis guy who's live at the game, and in 40 seconds, the internet's not yet happening on the TV. So you think to yourself, so he's telling me something what's happening in the game. And I said, well, when did that happen? And he said, oh, it's not happened yet. You'll see it in a minute. So that was strange. Again, that was a new experience that in probably my 30 odd years, I've never experienced. So just as when you think football has taught you a lot, it teaches you something else.
So as we touched on there, Odes, a strange couple of weeks for Darren Moore. You've spoken to him on Thursday. What was his sort of reaction to having to stay at home and watch his team from the comfort of his sofa for a couple of games?
I questioned whether he were sort of breaking down the walls and sort of dancing around his apartment while Rovers were playing, because we know he's very difficult to constrain down in this technical area usually, but he said he were relaxed because of the performance that Rovers put in against FC United and Manchester, and no reason why he shouldn't have been. But a lot of frustration from him that he couldn't get on the training ground with the players. We know how meticulous he is, how much detail he puts into things, and that opportunity that he would have had this week, given the international break, to actually work with his players, he sees that as an opportunity lost.
I think it was mentioned by Joe Wright on Thursday as well. We'll hear from him later on, but he said that the last international break was focused on work on the training field. This one's been more getting the rest into the players after a few long trips. How valuable do you feel that could be?
Quite a few of them have spoken about how key that has been. Andy Butler in particular mentioning it. Those long trips, and particularly the tricky journeys that they had down to Plymouth and Wimbledon as well, where you're not perhaps arriving as early as what you would like due to traffic. It does take a toll, and then having to travel back as well. You can see that it could be, while they've not had that work on the training ground, it could be valuable and just to have that bit of break from things.
Good. Did you feel that Darren might have been more stressed had it been 2 league games he was missing? If it had been Sunderland and Blackpool, for example.
Without doubt, it fell quite nicely in the calendar, didn't it? But I'm sure this week with Darren back on the training ground, it's probably perked everyone up. It's probably raised standards again. I think there's always a little temptation when your manager's away to maybe take a couple of shortcuts.
Like the supply teacher at school, isn't it?
My manager's not watching here, but you know what I mean. There was no examples of that, was there, against FC United or in the other cup tie? But I think Darren coming back on the training ground will just give everybody a lift this week.
Is that where your senior players come in, do you feel? Obviously, Butts took charge, but Coppinger, Whiteman, Anderson, the likes of those.
Yeah, I think Doncaster have got a good, really solid dressing room, and they're able to manage themselves quite nicely, aren't they?
Of course, coming into this one, Darren's had a couple of days to get back into the swing of things. Do you feel the players might feel the after effects of that after today's game?
Possibly. We'll still see. But yeah, again, you imagine that it's been a lot of information passed down to the players in these last couple of days. They've been filtered that in as quickly as possible in terms of what to expect from Sunderland and what they need to do to stop Sunderland more than anything.
I do think the freshness is a big thing today. Look, when you look at the way Doncaster play, the intensity that they want to play at, the closing down, that might give them a little edge today, because they're going to come up against a Sunderland team who'll probably get in their faces and make it tough, make it physical. So that freshness could really be handy today.
That Sunderland team you mentioned, under a little bit of pressure, still there or thereabouts in the top 6, but does that give you a sign of the expectations up in the North East, that they're in a position where most teams would take, but they still want so much more?
Here you go, you've got me start. How long have you got in terms of talking about Sunderland's problems at the minute? But they're under pressure, make no mistake about it. They're coming here, they're under pressure, the manager's under pressure, they need a result. They've actually found a new low in terms of losing to Mansfield in the FA Cup, and MK Dons, who hadn't won away for 14 months, I think it was, they've lost to them, so they're coming here on the back of 2 awful results. The fans are really on Parkinson's back from a distance, watching from home, and they need to perform today.
Now, the Rovers' new digital programme is available online and free to season ticket holders who just have to enter their unique code on the Matchday Info app. And here's a little bit more information on how to get yours. Now, a sign of the team unity at Rovers in recent weeks has been the number of players growing moustaches to raise awareness for testicular cancer and the Oddballs Foundation. Hodes, as a man with a bit of facial hair yourself, what have you made to some of the attempts this month, and who was your favourite from the Rovers squad?
Some very, very good ones, and I think we knew Andy Butler, given the facial hair he's had in the past, he would be sporting a very impressive tash which he has. Talking to Joe Wright the other day, he wasn't impressed with his own. He's labelled as the worst in the squad. I don't know how I'd do, having to grow a tash in space of a month. This is
I think you'd probably be better than me and Gunners.
It's great, and I'm sure it's good fun every morning when they see what progress each other's made.
Gunners, there's some good ones, some not so good ones, but it's all a part of a good cause, isn't it?
I'm in no position to comment whatsoever here. I'd have loved to have taken part, but literally, genuinely can't get on board. Joe Wright, I think somebody on the media, the admin team on the social media side, I think they've had him this week on Twitter. But yeah, Andy Butler for me.
We've seen a few as well. Cops has gone for it as well, something we've maybe not seen from him in the past. But Butts, as you said, has got the beard. Brad Halliday, Tom Anderson, Danny Amos as well has given it a fair good go for a younger lad. He's sporting a fairly decent beard himself.
Very, very good. It was interesting to see him lining up with Northern Ireland under-21s. He got all the young, fresh faces, and then right in the middle of them, Danny Amos with a very impressive tash.
Some interesting efforts there for Movember. You can get involved as well by donating. Now the link is on screen. We've mentioned Joe Wright's effort earlier on, and here's him talking about that top lip of his.
It's slightly blurry Zoom picture, but I can see a bit of growth underneath your nose there. How are you feeling about the tash right now?
To be fair, for me personally, it's terrible. I have to remind people that I am doing this for a good cause. It's not something I'd like to have on my top lip very often. I'm surprised you can even notice it, to be honest. It's not a strong point. I'll hold my hands up. It is terrible, but it's all for a good cause, and I'm more than happy to grow it as you'd like maybe say for a month. So, but yeah, it's awful, man.
So that's not sticking around. 1st of December, that's gone.
No, that's gone. That's gone as soon as I might even stay up till 12 o'clock and just whip it off straight away. To be honest, that's how bad it is. I've even had a bit of stick over Twitter for it, which I'm more than happy to have. So yeah, as long as it's raising money for a good cause, I'm more than happy to partake in that. Yeah, I imagine it'll be the same again. It's two teams that since Sunderland have dropped down into this league that have done well really. We've always been there or thereabouts, both teams, and I think both teams have a good style of play and know what they're good at really. It's always a tough test against Sunderland, especially with the likes of Charlie Wyke, who puts himself about. He's a good physical presence up there, but they've also got a lot of quality. So we're expecting a very tough game. We've got to work hard. We've got to do the basics, and that's what we'll look to do. We'll look to stick to our game plan to the best that we can, and try to pick up the 3 points.
Now, Liam, Joe's been using a couple of positions in recent weeks. He's favoured centre half, but then we saw him at right back against Lincoln and Wimbledon, and again against Wolves in the Papa John's Trophy, showing his flexibility as well. But do you think he'll be keen to get back to centre half this afternoon?
He seems to suggest so. He says it's a bit of a surprise for him. We remember seeing him in that playoff semi-final down at Charlton, playing the later stages of that game as right wing back and doing a very good job. But it was still a surprise against Lincoln. Did a fantastic job. Did a really good job as well against Wolves under-21s, up against Marseille. The Uber in the Champions League semi-final just a few months ago, and I think he forced Marcel off the pitch with a few meaty challenges, but also getting forward really well as well. So he can do that job, which is a valuable asset for Rovers to have.
Good. As do you feel that shows how meticulous Darren Moore is? The fact that in that Lincoln game he'd spotted a weakness down their left and our right. Nobody saw Joe Wright playing at right back before the game. We were all discussing how the back forward looked. Would it be Amos at right back? Who'd fit in there? I think when Joe Wright came out, there was a shock among the press box that he was going to line up at right back.
It was a real curveball, wasn't it? But yeah, that's a credit to Darren Moore and the work that goes on behind the scenes in terms of studying the opposition. And I also think as well, because the Doncaster squad isn't as big, as some other squads in this division, he has got to find a way of utilising players in different positions, and we've seen it with Reece James to really good effect as well. I think that's one massive positive at the moment, the way players are rotating around the team. Matt Smith playing further advanced. So it helps when you've got players that can play in various positions.
It's perhaps one of the positions, though, where you would have least expected anybody to move out of that centre-half role, given how Anderson and Wright had started the campaign. Were you more surprised at the fact it was Joe Wright changing position than if somebody else had fitted in there?
Yeah, I think you said it there. Just that partnership that him and Tom Anderson have got has been absolutely fantastic for a year now, and just seems to get better and better all the time. So breaking that up is quite a bold call, but we saw that it paid off.
Of course, Brad Halliday as well had started every Rovers game that he'd been available for up to then as well. So even more of a surprise, perhaps, that he was taken out of the starting 11.
Yeah, I'm sure that was quite difficult for Brad, having ever present in every competition as well. That's a magnificent achievement for Brad, and he has been consistent as well throughout that. So, but I think we did see the benefit of him coming out in that FA Cup game at FC United of Manchester. When he came back in, he looked renewed and fresh.
And although he said afterwards, good as he wants to play every game, Brad Halliday, do you feel, like Hode says there, he'll really benefit going into an even busier schedule of fixtures?
Without doubt. Look at the schedule that the players have had. You're asking a lot if you're going to play every single minute of every game. It's not realistic, I don't think. If with my manager's hat on, I've got a feeling Halliday will play it right back today. We'll see. We'll see. Sunderland have got a lot of pace down the flanks. They like to get the ball shifted out wide, get crosses in. So I think the fullbacks for Doncaster today have got their hands full.
And although we can't have fans in the stadium at present, our young supporters can still become virtual mascots. For just £100, you can get a full home kit signed by and printed with your favourite player's name and number, a personalised video message from your favourite player, an iFollow Rovers match pass for that game, and much more. Today's virtual mascot, Matthew Whiteley, we hope you have a really good day and enjoy it, mate. Obviously a special fan for today's game. And time now, though, for the latest edition of DDTV. Here's Fahiri Okunabiri being interviewed by Our Lady of Mount Carmel Primary School.
How did you become a professional football player?
I started just playing locally, like in my area, like on Sundays for a local team, and I got picked up by Arsenal Academy when I was about 7 or 8. So that was how my journey started, really. I was just playing locally with my friends, and I was lucky enough to get picked up. So yeah, that's how it started for me.
If you weren't a football player, what do you think you would be doing now?
Good question. If I wasn't playing football, I probably would have gone to uni and studied. Probably. I had an offer to go to university in America and study there, so maybe I would have done that. I'm not sure what I'd be working in yet, but yeah, I probably would have gone to university and then seen where I've gone from there.
Do you have any favourite players that you like to watch on TV?
I'm a striker, so I watch all the strikers in the Premier League. Really, I'm an Arsenal fan, so I like to watch Aubameyang a lot. He's a good striker. Aguero is a good striker, and Harry Kane's a good striker, even though he plays for Tottenham, but he's all right.
Okunabiri set to lead the line for Rovers this afternoon. And how big a job Gooders will he have on his hands against 3 centre-backs, as you mentioned earlier on, from Sunderland?
Yeah, that's the point, isn't it? He's got to be a real focal point today and hold the ball up and get the likes of Josh Sims into the game, because Sunderland are vulnerable in terms of pace at the back. So Josh Sims, I was hoping from a Doncaster perspective, I was hoping John Taylor would play today. That would give Sunderland a real test, but he's a doubt, isn't he? He's an injury doubt. But yeah, big role for Fedge leading the line again.
We've seen him do so well with his back to goal in recent weeks. He got a goal in the FA Cup. Do you feel he should have had more to his tally, though, given his hard work? Do you feel he deserves to have more goals under his belt?
I think he definitely does, and we do see him get shots away well. You know, a quick turn and firing a shot away. It's just when he's got a bit more time to think about it, does there seem to be a bit of an issue in terms of, and that's where he probably should have bagged more goals in this period. But he's so valuable for the team with that work that he does, sort of holding the ball up.
Of course, Tyrese John Jules now on his way back to full fitness. That may increase the work done by Okunabiri on the pitch. It always seems to happen, doesn't it? If you're looking over your shoulder slightly, thinking that your place in the team might be a little bit vulnerable, players seem to certainly up their game a little bit more. But from Sunderland's point of view, where do you see their threats lying? Where should Rovers be sort of wary of this afternoon, Gooders?
I think we're going to see a similar game to what we saw here last season in Sunderland. They'll be physical, they'll be organised, they'll be in Doncaster's faces. Doncaster are kind of the opposite in that they've got a youth, pace, flair. If you could merge these two teams together, I think you'd have a team that would walk this league, to be honest. So it's a clash of styles. Really interesting game. I'm going to completely sit on the fence and say 1s each.
I've got a good feeling. I'm going to go 2-1 today.
Liam, Paul, thank you for your company, and thanks at home for watching. Head over to I Follow Rovers now, live, full and exclusive match commentary. It's Rovers against Sunderland from 3 p.m.